Jason. Thank you so much for joining me again. I guess the last time we talked and I realized I forgot to hit the record button. Thank you for joining me in the Adaptive Men podcast. Jason, you are with Evolutionary Men. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, stoked to be back. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Awesome. So I think this is the second time I've had you on, but just to give a little recap, what got you into this line of work as a men's coach, men's facilitator?
Yeah, basically, my guide to becoming a leader in men's work started because it's the work that worked for me. So I got involved in my first men's group when I was about 26, just a tad under 20 years ago. And it was really that started to move the ball for me after having felt very stuck in my life in all kinds of ways, really numb, addicted to porn, unclear about my career, unsuccessful in relationships. And I got really lucky. Got in with a group who got me exposed to both them as quite high-quality men and other high-quality men that really kick-started my own journey of transformation. And I ended up just being such a cheerleader for, oh my God, hey, here's what I'm doing. It's working really well for me. I started talking about it a lot, and then men started asking me, like, hey, can I join your group? And it was full, so they couldn't. So I basically pivoted to starting leading men's groups out of my living room in Los Angeles for a couple of years, just posting them on meetup.com, and ran probably a couple hundred of those and started cutting my teeth, and then decided to go all the way in, get more training, and really double down on giving back, in a sense, to men to return the favor of what was given to me.
So nowadays, I think there's a real pushback on putting definitions on people or on certain things. And of course, there's always going to be, even in the case of things like masculinity and femininity, there's a broad spectrum of what you can include under those umbrellas. But just quick on what you said there, you said surrounded by high quality men. How would you define what a high quality man is?
Growth-oriented man who's taking responsibility for his life and pain. That'd basically be it. It's not that other men don't have the exist or be who they are, don't have the right to be who they are, but not everybody is growth-oriented, right? There's plenty of people, man, woman, whoever, that life happens to us and we're at the mercy of life. And there's a pretty big shift that happens in most people's developmental trajectory and transformational trajectory when it's like, oh, wow, life's not just going to get better by its own. There's a lot of things I don't have control over, right? Many, many different things. But what do I have control over? Can I take responsibility for that? And can I start the process of growth to make the most out of what capabilities and opportunities and privileges I do have?
Yeah, I know there's the 5 steps of transformation or change. I think it's like pre-contemplation, contemplation, maintenance, action, and transformation, something like that. And I've seen this a lot with people I've worked with, my own life, my friends, my family, and you see how different people, different men in particular, are at different stages of, for lack of better words, getting their head out of their ass and trying to break that victim mentality. In your experience, do you think is something that can be, it's not something I'm personally, I don't believe you can really tell somebody like, you need to change. It's more that you start doing things for yourself and the guys around you notice it. And then it kind of triggers that, oh, maybe I should be doing something. And then they voluntarily walk into the work. I think there's a lot of people that really want to spend too much time trying to convince other people to change rather than modeling it. And I wonder if
totally.
Experienced. Yeah.
You know, men's work, like any transformational modality or deep belief system, when we first learn about it, we think it's the solution to everything. And we just, hey, if you just did what I did, life would be perfect. And it's never quite that simple. But right, the first step is when we start to feel ourselves changing, often we get excited to share it with other people, right? We become the acolytes, so to speak. But not everybody's ready. And that's the key, right? To know that we can share our experience, what's happening for us. Our embodiment is always the best version of that. And for the right people, let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing that is changing my life for the better. Here's how it's impacted me. And hopefully they're also feeling that. And then when the time is right, if they're in a bit of pain or an emotional challenge in their life, they remember that. And when they are ready, they approach you. And I have found that tends to be the best strategy, because if you're not ready to change, you're not ready to change. And you can hammer all the strategy and techniques and tools and accountabilities and reasons why someone should do it. But if they're not deeply in touch with the pain underneath and why they want to change for their own sake, it doesn't really stick. So there's a, as a men's work leader, even when I am working with guys, they have the right to be where they're at. And it's a sometimes challenging thing to let somebody grow at their own pace.
Yeah. There is something just, I don't know if it hit me like a month or two ago, and I was trying to work through some almost, I would say ground rules, but more like just general undisputed facts of just humanity and how it applies to men's work. And one of those things for just men and women alike is like, you cannot violate autonomy. Like at the end of the day, if you can convince someone to do something they don't want to do, they'll do it out of spite, not because they want to. Like you force somebody into the men's work, they're just going to sit there and just plug their ears and close their eyes the whole time until they're just genuinely ready to do it. But at the same time, there is just something fascinating about how not only now, I mean, human psychology in general has an amazing ability to create these psychological barriers to the pain that we're hiding underneath. I'm fine. It's just a phase. I I like watching porn once in a while. It's okay. I'm only drinking once every a couple of days, or like, I don't really like the gym that much. And then just how many things you can get to until finally, when you get rid of that, you realize like, oh, I really don't like myself, or I've been holding a lot of pains in my childhood, or I'm terrified more than I thought I was. And nowadays, what's even worse is how many things we have to enable those barriers to get stronger. Like free porn in your pocket, video games crazier than what reality can even give you, the tastiest food at your fingertips down the road in less than 5 minutes, 24 hours a day. And we're getting further and further away from actually engaging with our own pain to realize that's where the transformation really is.
Yeah, I would say totally. I mean, not to go too systems oriented, but yeah, capitalism profits off of that whole process. And even teaching you that there's something wrong with you and here's the solution to it. If you just buy this product, do this thing, that pain will go away. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we're going to be stuffing you full of so much stuff you won't feel your pain. So it's this really weird dance we're in, and it's just getting accelerated, right? With AI and chatbots and virtual people and virtual friends and all the things we're about to get hit by that. Yeah, building intimacy with our pain and being close to it and not avoiding it is one of the most powerful things we can do as people right now. Because when we haven't taken responsibility for our pain, it makes us very susceptible to manipulation.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I never thought about that, how you can essentially convince somebody to find clever ways to continue dancing around their problems and their pain. And even the point about capitalism, just any kind of society that tries to encourage this, it's just this problem of you're solving a problem, not realizing the bigger problem behind the problem. It's like, what's the problem? I'm in pain. What's the real problem? Your pain is covering up a bigger pain that you really would do better if you got through and got down to and dug down to. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many mixed incentives. I remember I always heard this thing from Seth Godin once. He was like, yeah, even the fitness industry, the gym industry, if they really cared about your fitness, basically it'd be like, $100 a month for a membership. But every time you came, they'd knock off $5. So you would get $5 back, because what their incentive would be actually to get you in the gym and fit. Whereas most gym memberships, the best person to sign up is the person that signs up and never comes, because they get the money, but then they don't have the extra labor and equipment wear and tear and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of forces that we're having to just evolve, right? In my line of work to be into contact with, including, like you said, on-demand porn all the time, easy access to sugary food. I even saw these things now, right? You can take an old photo and it'll animate it with someone. And so pretty soon, media in the 90s totally called this, but we'll have an addiction of previous relationships and memories we don't want to let go of.
I didn't even think of that. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally. Like spend some time with your mom or your old lover. and
Running away
you
from
never
grief.
really have to grieve the
Yeah.
loss of them. So these things are just accelerating in a sense, and our nervous systems haven't adapted, right? So back in the day, you didn't have to self-regulate how much sugar you're going to eat because there was only so much fruit on the tree, and it was only in season for so long, right? There were natural constraints on these things. And unless you were Genghis Khan, there was a limit to right, how much sex you could have, how many naked women you could see. That's all out the door. So now we have to self-generate the limits, which is really one of the great capacities you can make as a man now, is to create sovereignty of, okay, I can control my nervous system and know when enough is enough. Which doesn't mean I have to shy away and become hardcore no to everything, but we do have to build some capacity for how do I nourish myself with certain things, but not go overboard, right? How do I manage the addictions, which are constantly being pushed our way because life is stressful? Right? We also have to hold more complexity and stress than ever before, just in terms of the amount of information a human assimilates, the amount of information at a global scale we assimilate, and the level of uncertainty, right? The stats are all pretty crazy of the most stressful thing on a nervous system. It's not even bad news, it's uncertainty. It's we don't know what's about to happen, and it's that limbo state of, the text bubbles when someone's messaging you and you're like, oh, I don't know what they're about to say, but I know something's happened. Oh, wait, the bubbles just stopped. It's that uncertainty is really hard on our nervous systems.
Within that is this idea of masculine initiation. It's it's entirely what it was intended to do. Is you're going to get a better relationship to uncertainty. You're going to get a better relationship with discipline. You're going to have a healthy relationship with the parts of you that keep the other parts in check. Like, yes, you should have a healthy sex drive, but you shouldn't be satisfying 24/7 through pornography in your phone. You should want to eat sweet treats once in a while, but not every day, 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day. And we've lost a lot of those initiatory rites, those rituals. There are a lot of, I've seen your group for sure, but a lot of things going on, like these public men's events and whatnot, these retreats you can go to for several days. It's just trying to do whatever can to grasp it back. But even within that, I think a lot of people don't realize that, what is a Carl Jung quote? It's like, there's the gold in the shadow or something like that. That it's just like, it's behind all your pain is really where like the true value in your life is going to be. But unless somebody guides you through it, or you have either guides you through it because you voluntarily stepped into the work, or your life just exploded because you can no longer hold back. Which I think you see these guys who hit rock bottom, they have nowhere to go, but realize like, oh, the only door left is the pain door. It's the only way I can walk through. And that's when you realize like, oh, my life actually was better on the other side of this if I can just had gone through it. What do you notice as far as, I guess, the men you work with? Like, what are some signs that a man may be really in need of some kind of, I'm sure everyone could use it, but the men who really could use it may be in need of some sort of external guidance and support?
Yeah, I mean, usually it does come in the sense of some kind of life crisis, relationship ending, spouse, wife leaving them, girlfriend dumping them, 500th first date using the apps and just can't get into a relationship, can barely get any connection back, creates a lot of pain. Get a lot of guys coming to me for that. Career struggles, right? I'm not making enough money. I got laid off. I hate the work I'm doing. And I pretended for so long, but I can't pretend anymore. And then honestly, just loneliness and depression for guys, right? Like I feel dead, right? I don't even, sometimes I wonder why should I even be here? Right? It's a very common sign for men when we think of checking out in the big sense. Or I've been so medicated either through substances like alcohol, weed, porn, or actual prescribed medications as well, right? In the line of work I do, the way I do it, I'm by no means anti-pharmaceutical, but I don't think they're meant to be used forever.
Yeah.
Right? I consider them pharmaceuticals to be, it's like calling the ambulance and the EMT comes, and they know how to stop the bleeding so you don't die and you can get stable. They bring you to stability. They don't necessarily bring men beyond that. And I work with a lot of guys as well who have been deep in recovery. And AA is an amazing, amazing program. I mean, when you think about what a decentralized movement it is and the support it offers, I mean, it's just incredible. But a lot of guys come to me when they've been in that for a while and they're like, it got me back to okay, but I don't know how to grow beyond this now. And so that there's all these interventions that can bring us back to a baseline, but don't necessarily take us beyond. And whether that's pharmaceuticals or AA or different things we use. Sometimes I get guys coming to me with that. They're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to not just be managing my pain, but to be growing and thriving into a deeper identity. And I want to feel alive. You know, that's just another thing I get from a lot of men. I want to feel alive and engaged with my life. And so those will often be that's often the various states of men that'll, you know, at that point be like, okay, I need help. I'll try anything. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that popped into my mind when you talk about the one feel alive is like getting in touch with that energy you had when you were a little boy. And at some point in your life, especially nowadays, for a variety of different reasons, could be single parenting, could be absent masculine figures, could be the school system, could be just a million different things. It's amazing how much we're, for lack of better words, I think trying to treat men, not always, but trying to treat men like defective women. There must be something wrong with you because you're so energetic. You're so ambitious. You can't sit still. You want to go out. You're constantly wanting to do things. Like, calm down, relax. And I think there was a lot of me growing up too. Same thing, like a lot of junk food, a lot of just like comforts of home and never really stepping out of my comfort zone. It wasn't until like some big life events happened, it kind of like forcibly broke my reality in a way, in a good way, that I ended up rebuilding and realizing like, how long has this been down there for? Like just like love and passion for life and wanting to go do things and try new things and just see what happens and be okay with uncertainty, that a lot of guys have to get back in touch with. What are the most common misconceptions, or I guess misconceptions is a good word, that men step into this thinking they're going to get from it, or their reluctance to even do it?
I mean, when it comes to dating and relationships, the thing I always say is men come and they say, I want to feel confident with women. And I always say, I don't teach that, so come to the wrong place. Because generally, if I dig into that with men, what they mean is, I never want to have to feel rejected or uncomfortable or vulnerable when I approach a woman or share something with the woman. I want to know I'm going to get the outcome I want. And I say, no, I don't roll like that, because whether it's a first date or 30th wedding anniversary, there are always going to be times where for you to bring your truth forward, it is going to be scary and full of uncertainty and vulnerability. So that's really what we want to cultivate, right? Courage, capacity to stay present even when it's scary, so to speak. And so I do a lot of work with men around that. And, you know, same thing with dating and relationships, do a lot of work around polarity and presence. But have to be super clear with them. You can do everything in the world to become the most present, grounded, masculine-oriented man in the world. Doesn't mean your wife's going to respond. Doesn't mean you're going to get that individual girl's number. You cannot control other people, right? All you can control is your side of the court. So that for one. And then, you know, in general, I think a lot of guys are afraid of emotion, like we've been talking about. And they assume some of these things they haven't wanted to feel are going to overwhelm them in a pretty strong way, and pretty quickly learn, oh, this thing I've been scared about all these decades, turns out I could handle that in a couple hours, oftentimes. And there's like a huge reset there. And then another one I'd say is that oftentimes the love men are looking for I mostly work with heterosexual men, but really anyone, is actually love from other men is what they're really looking for, and that they didn't even know was possible and on the menu. And when they experience it, that alone is life-changing, because suddenly, instead of having to get all this approval and stuff out there from the feminine and work and whatnot, I can get it from my peers. And it creates a whole different way of walking through the world, so to speak. And yeah, I think I'll pause there for a second, see how that's all landed.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think one thing that stood out was interesting. I've noticed this a lot, and maybe this is just me asking a fellow facilitator who's more advanced than me. How do you, if you can, get across to a man who is expressing a desire to control an outcome, but not able to see that's what he's doing? I've experienced it in my own life, and then I'm past that. I walk into a first date now, I'm like, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Versus like, it has to go over well, and I'm from the, it's like, well, I don't know. You walk in saying, who the F knows what's going to happen? That's okay. But I've seen guys in my own life, even my family and friends, who they don't realize they're trying to control something, and then when you point it out, they kind of change the narrative to make it sound justified, when in reality, isn't it just an extension of fear of uncertainty, fear of uncontrol?
Yeah, I mean, that's classic coaching in the sense of a delicate line to walk, because if I tell them that, it's not going to have the same impact of they come to that realization in their own awareness, right? So it's, okay, how can I guide them deeper into their experience and help them see what's really running under the surface? That's it. Not judging it per se, but, they have to have the light bulb moment. They have to have the light bulb moment. Sometimes I can, give guys a lot of scaffolding around that, leading them towards that. Sometimes I can't, but I've just found that, the more I tell someone this is how here's what's going on, men we don't like that shit most of the time. Many men have antibodies to being told what to do or to be controlled. Yeah. And so again, it's just, a lot of my work is just connecting them to what's going on inside their bodies. And then as they build intimacy with that, awareness usually comes deeper of, oh, yeah, I'm actually really afraid of X. And so when I'm really afraid of X, I behave like Y. And when I behave like Y, he or she or whatever the world responds by doing Z. And then once they see that, it's on them, right? I can't make the different choices for them, but they've seen the pattern.
Yeah, there's a funny thing there with like pulling back the curtain on the man behind the Wizard of Oz reference there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It exactly. It's what's that? I heard this joke the other day. It's like a Buddhism joke, and it's a good one. I think it was like, haven't started enlightenment, better not start. Started enlightenment, better finish. Like you don't want to get halfway into realizing like what your patterns are, because I think I had someone the other day I talked to about this and said, I'm really happy that I'm very self-aware now. And I said, it doesn't change the fact that you still have to feel what you have to feel. Even if you know what you're hiding from, you still have to go through it. It's the only way for your body to metabolize emotions, feelings, experiences, changing your behavior. Like that process is going to suck, whether you know about it or you don't.
Yeah,
but it's okay, because once you can power through it, once you move through it at your own pace and your own time, you really integrate it in a proper way, you're a new person afterwards. Absolutely. This is cool, though. I think this is a good tie-in then to, you said before about when a person acts like X and then gets Y outcome and then Z happens. Nice guys. This is probably a big one for me. I'm going to probably be focusing more heavily on my own content just for now, to start small and then branch from there. But nice guy syndrome in a nutshell, like what? I don't even know where to start with this one, but we can just jump right into it. Let's from your definition, what is a nice guy?
Yeah, totally. It's an evolutionary adaptation, I would say. And the big part of it is, when we're born, we have two needs. We have a need for attachment, healthy attachment to our primary caregivers, because literally out of the womb, we cannot take care of ourselves. We'll die, right? And well up into, our younger years in some pretty significant ways. But then we also have a need for authenticity and agency and expression, right? So our truth, our bodily need to come out. This is what I need right now. And to be able to share that, to move in a way, whatever's authentic, to move that through. Nice guy syndrome happens when at a young age, those two things come into conflict. And in order to keep secure attachment alive, I have to dissociate from or modify my authenticity or truth in order to keep the relationship going between me and you, right? So I start to modify my behavior to orient towards you. Another way to think about it is for kids, it's often rooted in the directionality of attunement. So as a young kid, attunement is supposed to happen from caregiver to child. The caregiver is supposed to feel into the child's nervous system, adjust their nervous system to soothe the kid. A lot of nice guy syndrome is what happens when that's off from a young age, where suddenly the kid maybe has a volatile parent, and I am, again, starting to modify my behavior in order to keep health for my parent, right? I'm attuning to them to co-regulate them. And that's a process that starts really young and then continues up, well into our adult years and sometimes all the way to the grave. And in that mechanism, what often gets kind of born in nice guys is validation has to come from the outside. So I'm always seeking approval or okayness in the other. That's always the priority. If they're not okay, I'm not okay. If they're not okay, I'm not okay. And so again, we're always trying to make sure everyone else is okay. Thus the nice guy. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make you feel safe, regulated, okay, whatever. So I know you're not angry at me and the attachment's not threatened. More from a bodily energetic place, right? The three energy centers of the head, the heart, and the gut. It's often when the gut shut down in it's all heart space. So we're all attunement, but we've lost touch with, I need this. No, right? Just primal lower body energy in a sense, kind of that sacral energy. And that has huge ramifications, right? Now, the interesting thing is, to me, nice guy syndrome is an evolution of the macho jerk, right? Because you come into the world, you're only ego, you're only me. And that caused a lot of devastation in the world. And so this other mechanism, the social relational part, came online. So I often say, it's better to be a nice guy than be a dick, because you can teach a nice guy how to get in touch with his balls and his dick. But it's way harder to take an asshole, so to speak, and teach them to care. Because you often can't do that. They have to come to that through external life circumstances of difficult challenge to create that sympathy and empathy oftentimes. So I'm a fan of nice guys. I love nice guys. I'm a nice guy. I work with nice guys. But the work is, okay, I just have to make sure that my caring for other people is not at the expense of self. I always have to include myself with the same fervor as I am other people. In any equation, I matter too. My needs matter too. And my authenticity it matters too. And in fact, the more I learn to express my authenticity, the more genuine my actual relationships become. Because nice guys are often surface level, manipulative, lying, right? Things we don't normally associate with them, but it's more like they bend the truth by ignoring their reality to prefer the others. And that's not actually authentic or honest, right? And that's where covert contracts and all the beautiful work Dr. Glover has done really came in to illuminate that. So it's a big deal because there's a lot more nice guys, I would say, than there ever used to be because of just the trajectory of the world. And we need nice guys to find their balls because now is a time in the world where we need men with balls and hearts to say, no, that's not okay. It's that simple, right? Yeah. No, that's not okay to many different things happening in the world. Women are ringing the bell and they're trying, but we got to do it together.
Yeah, that word manipulation is always a funny one whenever you bring it up, and it really it's almost like your own mind is manipulating you to manipulate somebody else. You genuinely feel like I'm being authentic by keeping my mouth shut. I'm just not an angry person. I am just naturally passive aggressive. It's just what I do. I don't actually like taking up space. I'm happy sitting in the corner being quiet, even though secretly I would love to be up there on the stage performing. But it's okay. It's okay. It's just who I am. This is how I am. Yeah. And I think even with the element of women, I think it's the more I've learned about it, it's fascinating to see how much research and data coming out talking about things like women's intuition and nonverbal communication, and realizing that you can't fool your subconscious. You really can't. Like you can, I said this, why didn't they believe me? Because your body said something else. And then there's a mismatch there and they're going to pick it up. That's going to send up alarm bells for a lot of women saying like, I don't really want to be near you because I don't really know exactly what's going on in you right now.
It's
and
huge.
then they misinterpreted it. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. It's that's often the source of it's one of the biggest sources of creepiness in men. It's men who are dissociated from their sexuality and holding it in shame. And so because they're not okay with it, right? Beautiful woman, ooh, I want to look at her, but I don't want to look at her. I want to look at her, but I don't want to look at her. So I'm trying to connect, but I'm not really connecting. And there's a part of me I'm not feeling. The feminine, I mean, human, it doesn't even have to just be a woman. They'll notice like something feels off, right? He's kind of shifty. His eyes are looking, or he doesn't look. What's going on here? Am I safe? I don't know. And it's been wild, There's a number of women I've talked to that are actually feel much safer when they know a man's attracted to them. It's like, oh, okay, I know why he's coming up to me right now. He's attracted to me. And not all women are like that. Obviously, everyone has personal context. But when they don't know, like, I think he's attracted to me, but I don't know what's going on, that dissonance inside of ourselves creates a lot of sexual creepiness. And it's a huge thing for a lot of nice guys because their sexuality is often deeply held in shame because guess what? Sexuality comes from that lower part of our body. And if we're disconnected from that or not okay with that, it has huge ramifications. And then, it's the classic friend zone kind of thing. If I'm just a good enough friend, which is just an evolved version of if I just pay for everything, she'll give me sex. It's just, if I am nice enough, she'll give me sex. And it's not honest, right? Because the man's not saying, hey, I want to have sex with you. Like it's kind of that simple in a sense, and it causes a lot of pain for both sides.
Well, this segues beautifully into polarity work as well. A lot of guys are just, they don't know how to, they haven't been trained to, they haven't practiced how to hold that masculine pole in the times, especially in a relationship, in the dating and courtship long term. A lot of times you get into relationships, sex is amazing, it's all novel, it's new, it's fun, it kind of starts to fade away, and then suddenly we're married, we're in a sexless marriage, we haven't touched each other in 10 years, I don't know what happened, and either divorce or an affair. And you're like, what happened? Oh, women just suck, women are this, women don't get married, it's not worth it. Not realizing that, like, no, it's something changed. You lost connection to something, you something withered in you, the dynamic you're not aware of. What is it that she likes? What is it that you like? What is it that she doesn't like? What is it that you don't like? And then how can you create a container in the form of a relationship that either naturally or voluntarily creates circumstances that bring that out of you without the shame or the embarrassment of saying like, hey, you know what? Like I actually would like to go on a hot date tonight or maybe next Friday, or actually like, I really like it when you wear these kind of clothes or whatever it may be. And then it's kind of like you said, it's this withering away. And I think at least from the masculine side, it's more about a capacity to hold presence, more about consciousness, more about staying in the moment, being okay with riding some degree of emotional volatility, not meaning it's going to be like, bipolar, holy crap, but just like the average woman is going to have some degree of, like emotions she's going to cycle throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, and being able to say, I'm okay. I'll be here. I'm present. I'm still here as you're going through it. And then they lose that and they go into problem solving mode. Or they try to say, what can I do to fix this? Or I just can't be here right now. I want to go away. Or this is too much for me. Just go talk to your women girlfriends. And all of a sudden, why haven't we had sex in weeks and months? What's going on? What's going on here? Is you having an affair? You lost it there, yeah. So I'm curious in that regard. Polarity. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I love polarity. And, it's kind of funny. I teach a lot of it with Mel, who I know you've talked to before. And polarity is the easiest part. That's the funny thing I say now. It's the sexiest thing to market because you get to create these Instagram reels and men and women looking at each other and in their bodies and grounded. It's the easiest thing to market and it's the easiest thing to learn. You can go to a workshop and basically learn everything you need to know about polarity in 2 days. Like totally honest. You then have to practice it and apply it. But generally what I find is what gets in the way of polarity much faster is wounding. Attachment wounding. What did I internalize as a kid about what love is? What do I feel safe expressing? What do I not feel safe expressing? What do I do with my anger when I don't get what she needs? And then it builds into resentment. And then it is date night and I'm kind of pissed at her and nobody wants to fuck each other. right? I can do the breath, but there's all this stuff in between us. So they really have to go hand in hand in my mind, right? We have to be doing the work to become more available and whole as partners, create deep connection and safety and intimacy. And then polarity actually often becomes easier. You know, in my relationship, what I found is sometimes we'll do specific polarity practice, but a lot of times the most polarized moments will come when we do deep emotional or shadow work with each other. When I get vulnerable or she gets vulnerable, and we bring something novel forward and allow ourselves to be held by each other in that, not collapsing in that, but doing some deep work, out of that, energy starts flowing pretty deeply often. And then the moment becomes pretty quickly polarized, because then we have something we're wanting to express, right? The sexuality is an expression of the connection we just felt and built, which is another way to do it, right? But yeah, I mean, there's some basic skills and capacities we do need to develop as men. And again, even for a lot of guys, what I find is why they have a hard time being present is because they have so much fucking tension in their bodies, physical tension, emotional tension, ruminating brains, that they can't be still. And if their partner starts feeling or emoting, the way resonance works is what you feel in your nervous system, I'm going to start to taste and feel in my nervous system. And guess what? If there's any part of my nervous system, my emotional experience, I'm not okay with, I am going to not want to feel that. By fixing it, by getting you out of it, by leaving the room, by shutting down, by going quiet and yawning like I used to. So it gets a lot easier to be present when we've dealt with the tension in our nervous system. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm just here. Right, literally. And sometimes different practices I'll do on retreat and work with men, right? It's to remove that tension, and then spaciousness is just more naturally there. Oh, okay, here I am, totally grounded. So I love it. And it's also just constantly evolving, right? Polarity now is different than it was 20 years ago. And the terms are constantly changing. I was just in a conference and Alison Armstrong was speaking, and she was talking about the evolution of how she's had to use these terms over the years. And they just keep changing because they get more nuanced. And rather than, masculine, feminine, people have created all kinds of variations of that now. But in essence, what I end up pointing people to, particularly in long-term relationships, is what's most important is your capacity for fluidity. It's not just your capacity to anchor into your masculine as a man, but to have fluidity, to know when that's needed and when something else is needed. And your currency as a man is now actually in your ability to read the moment and go back and forth. So sometimes I go into men's group with my guys, I'm not holding the masculine. That is a place I need to be held, like quite literally sometimes, and be messy and be vulnerable and just have my range of fears and anxieties or feelings or whatever. And then lo and behold, by doing that there, I get to come back to my family and be a lot more centered and grounded and know what I'm moving towards, know what I care about, etc. So that fluidity, that agility is another way to put it, is that takes a lot of practice. And all the emotional work, the shadow work, all that shit, that's feminine work, right? That's us working that part of our system. Really, the only masculine practice is witnessing consciousness. Like, that's it. You can do that in any given moment, anytime. Everything else is just manifestations of the feminine, really. But the more we clear ourselves out there, the easier it is to hold that grounded presence and to witness the moment and ourselves in it without totally dissociating. So yeah, I think it's super fun. I love it. I love practicing it with my partner. I love seeing it in children as well, right? All kids start as the feminine, right? They have no containment. They're just energy and reactivity in the moment in a beautiful, responsive way. And then seeing what emerges both in a young boy and a young girl and any identity in between is, okay, we have to build these internal capacities, like we said, for self-regulation and pleasure.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I moved recently, about 3 months ago, from New York to Georgia. I'm living here now, closer to some longtime childhood friends. And a big part of the move for me was to be in the presence of men in my life that I feel like were really ahead of me in certain aspects. They could fill in spots that I just couldn't fill in myself. They're getting stuff done. They have ambitions with the future. And as soon as I got here, I was telling like, maybe in a couple months I'll start dating. And within like 3 weeks, I was like, I feel like I'm ready to go. I feel good now. I feel like I'm around my guys. I want to just, and I remember a couple of dates that I went on, I noticed that it was like a first stage meeting up in a park somewhere, but at one point, I remember one time talking for like 2-3 hours. And at some point I realized like, I haven't checked in with myself for like 3 hours, which means I've just been like I'm just here. Whatever you're saying, I'm engaging with you, having fun, flirting. Whereas years ago, every 10 seconds, I'd be like, my hair looks weird. My nose is big. My shirt's kind of awkward. There's got to be a dirty spot. I'm sitting weird. She noticed how nervous I'm right now. And you just tell, they're just like, you're just completely turning me off. Versus now I can see, oh, she's playing with her hair. Oh, she doesn't like the way I said that. So I could change that a little bit if I need to. Or I can just be a little more authentic. I'll just authentically say something. And just the difference being night and day, and how much of it really just projects, whether you realize it or not, into your body language, into your day-to-day life, and into that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there was something earlier you said, it was regards to, like, I had this thought of like old wounds, and what you said, wounding. Yeah. Old wounds being almost like muscle knots in the body of your shadow that you have to just kind of, you won't know they're there until you start poking around at them. And then how often it'll just pop up in certain different weird ways in your life, and how often, like, what are some behaviors you think, I mean, we may have touched on this earlier, but what behaviors do you think are indicative that men can use as a guide marker of like, oh, there's something here?
Sure.
Like, could be reactivity. Let's go for it. Yeah.
Reactivity triggers, I'm triggered. We hear that and we make fun of that a lot in the culture right now. But the idea is my prefrontal cortex basically goes offline. That's it. Like, and certain things knock us offline more often because they're connected to previous wounding, right? So there's the intensity of the actual experience in the moment, but then that gets fuel added to the fire of anything unprocessed around that in the past. That's why things can become explosive. So, right, it's this sense of, my reactions aren't necessarily appropriately correlated to the stimulus, right, is a big one for guys. Or just the, why do I keep X? Why do I keep Y? I don't want to be, right? I know this isn't good for me. I know I want something else, yet I keep finding myself in this situation or pattern or relationship over and over and over again. That's almost always some kind of wounding. Complete stuckness, freeze, usually some kind of wounding, shadow or attachment, in the sense of I'm having a hard time moving forward in my life or taking chances or risks or whatever that, or I just feel numb and flat, right? Those are all responses to this. Exhaustion, right? One of the guys I do a lot of work with, he's a doctor of Chinese medicine. And you hit 45 and above with most men. And one of the big things they're dealing with is energy management, right? We come in, we're young. As I like to joke, it's like we have a preloaded debit card full of chi and we're just charging that. I'm out partying. I'm doing this. I'm not sleeping. I'm pushing. I'm working. And it feels like that can go on forever. Boom, you hit your 40s in particular for most men. And it's like, oh no, that will not go on forever. And I feel tired, right? I can feel if I keep pushing myself, I'm going to grind myself down. Okay, I'll take more caffeine, more stimulants, push myself harder, whatever. And it starts to we start to really hurt ourselves. But that lack of energy, a lot of that metabolic resource can often be attributed to, what I call these kinks in our nervous system, where emotional content didn't flow and parts of our literally cells are on lockdown, holding certain sensations in our body. And that takes energy, right? It takes energy. And we might not be conscious of it, but our system is constantly navigating around that, right? Moving energy around it in some capacity or staying tense and locked up. And as we do deeper shadow work, it's one of the things I love about retreat. It's quite honestly seeing men come alive. Faces soften, eyes brighten, blood starts flowing, voice deepens, presence gets bigger, just because there's movement and there's less holding. They're not holding and everything. It's much easier to hold space, right, in the polarity sense. We're not having to hold all this shit inside of you.
So I got 9 years left, is what you're saying. 45, and I'm going to fall asleep. Yeah, I'm curious now with the men's work, the men's groups, the retreats and things like that. Is this becoming the new? It's almost like nature abhors a vacuum. Like we lost a lot of men's spaces and rituals, and now we're finding it again. Because we're realizing you can't medicate away your pain. You can't dodge initiation to really get into a more healthy, grounded version of yourself. Do you feel like this is becoming the new version of that? We got rid of men's clubs, but now we have men's retreats. We got rid of male initiation, but now we have online and these kind of programs. Do you feel like this is kind of like the future of what's going to happen? I think in a sense, it's almost like you can try to push it down, but it's just going to bounce right back. In some sense, like the need for it in some expression.
Totally, we're wired. We are mammals wired for social relating, and we need community and connection. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. And whether it's men or women, we're seeing the limits of what happens when you don't have smaller tribes, in a sense, right? Like literally our evolutionary, we're wired to hold about 100 relationships close to us and be in contact with that. That's all kind of out the door, but we feel really good when we're plugged in that sense. We're able to orient. I know my place in life and community in the world. And, virtual, online, global culture burst all that open. And there's a lot of gifts about that, but now we're having to reintegrate, to re-include. Okay, actually, trying to connect to the whole world is not how we're optimized. It causes all kinds of problems when everyone has a microphone and can talk to everyone else. And there's no intimacy. There's actually no relationship built. So, we're seeing a relocalization, which isn't going to just be physical, but now we can have these pods of community online. It's one of the things this kind of work is bridging. And men need it, right? We need to grow together. We need that feedback together. There's a lot of gifts in that, right? Some of the research I learned about last year was most people know about oxytocin, right? The kind of love hormone. Male bodies are actually wired with more receptors for vasopressin than oxytocin, right? Which is a similar, they come from the same evolutionary chain. The difference is vasopressin, the way you feel connection is you do hard shit together. That's it. You survive stressful things together. That used to be, we're going to go off and explore and build shit as men. The new territory I'm certainly seeing in my groups is, that can be the inner world that we face together. Our own inner dragons and demons and wounds from our lineage. When we move through that together as men, deep bonding, deep brotherhood, deep connection that lasts years beyond the retreat or the experience, and that most men are incredibly malnourished on and craving from the guys I work with. Like they want it, and once they get it, they feel more settled in life, and lo and behold, it's much easier to take risks, take chances, live more boldly, have more fun, feel connected and part of something. So I think it's an appropriate medicine that's coming back to soothe, a lot of hurt and damaged men right now. That it's not the only medicine, but it's one of the really powerful ones for sure, that obviously I'm a huge champion of.
Yeah. So you're saying the 5 million followers on Instagram are not my close friends? Are you sure?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's the sugar. It's sugar. It's those parasocial relationships. They feel like nutrition, but they're not nutrition. Right? Yeah, you're getting empty calories. Social media is almost always empty calories. The most meaningful social media in my life comes from being able to connect deeply with people around very specific things. That's where it works. Right? My daughter's deaf and has cochlear implants. Being connected to a community of parents who also have children like that, incredibly valuable in this day and age online. Would not have been possible 30 years ago. That's useful. Going online to Facebook or Twitter or seeing it's all garbage. It just is immediately often harming to our nervous systems. We're not meant to relate in that way. We at least need something to bond around in terms of our common humanity. So those parasocial relationships, they're dangerous, and they're just about to go through the roof, right? AI chatbots that are your best friend, that know everything about you and that never get mad at you, never go away, are a real thing. And I think men are particularly susceptible to this right now because we do have a crisis of closeness and intimacy. And that can give you, again, kind of an empty calories version of it that makes you feel seen, makes you feel known, but doesn't actually require you to hold any difference and be in friction with, right? AI is never going to get reactive or triggered. It's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear all the time. And guess what? That's not how humans work. Yeah. So we're already seeing that skill set atrophy tremendously in people. And being able to hold connection while in conflict, that is going to be one of the marks of a super leader, man or woman, moving forward.
It reminds me of, I don't know if this is not too old, but it's an older movie, Wall-E. I think it was from Pixar, and the robots. And there's a scene when they go to outer space and all the humans are they're on the flying chairs and they're fat. Whatever the new fad is, immediately everyone gets the same color, the same item. There's no challenge, there's no difficulty. And it's going to be interesting, unfortunate, but it's going to be interesting seeing how we transition to that new phase of things and how there's going to be something of a kickback. I think there's a line from Dostoevsky's work where it's something like people, like human beings in a utopia would burn it down just to see something interesting happen. And there is this innate need for not that you want conflict, but there is something growth oriented when you do something challenging. When you say I'm not good at this, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to feel the frustration of doing it. And then I'm going to be better as a result of having gone through it. That AI is going to briefly, I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's going to briefly convince people, oh, you're happy, until there's this emptiness you just can't fix. And they can program it to death, and it's never going to be able to do what we can do as human beings.
Yeah, this is just the way things always happen. Something new comes out, the pendulum swings all the way to it. We see there's pathology, then it swings back. So even the 90s, 2000 mindfulness, anti-stress movement here, really popular in the West, of stress is bad, no. Chronic stress can be very damaging, but we actually need stress to grow. And what you want to do is create the conditions to give yourself positive stress in life, because that's how you grow new musculature, right? Quite literally. If the weight's not heavy enough, you're not growing anything. It needs that stress. We need the same thing in our relationships. And that's one of the things I've been very heartened by in the groups I lead, that, there's some homogeny for sure in terms of the men I work with and who has the resources and access, but there is a range, and that includes politically. That, oh my God, to be able to stay in connection with someone in these extremely divisive moments who, if I just saw them online, I would label them and discount them in 30 seconds. But a group can get underneath that. And what I found is when we connect around pain first, most of that shit up there doesn't matter. And I think our world needs a lot more of that.
Yeah. There was an interesting study. I forget where I read about it, but it was fascinating. It was talking about how it was a scientist, I think it was maybe a sociologist, who was looking to figure out, trying to understand right after the Holocaust what happened, why, how could people do this to each other? And what he showed was they did this study where they basically had a film going of a person's hand, and a needle comes down and it pricks the hand. And they would hook a person up to this whole system while they were watching the film of this going on, and they would see oh, it hurts me when that guy's hand gets pricked. It's not my hand, it's somebody else's hand, but I could feel the pain. But when they said, okay, we're going to take a Republican, for example, and the person, the label on the screen would say Democrat. The pain response was numbed or less than, but if they said you're Republican, they're Republican, the pain response was more intense. So right there, what you're saying a second ago is that when we can disconnect from a person's lived experience online, I could sum up her person in 140 characters on Twitter. No, you fucking can't. There's so much more going on to the story there. And when you don't include that, you miss so much opportunity to connect. And then, like you said, work through that disconnect, and that disruption is going to happen when you're trying to figure out where do we have common ground? Maybe it's actually deeper than just the political affiliation at the top, or the gender differences, or the life differences, or whatever it may be. Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of the great, I would say, malicious things running through the culture right now is dehumanization and objectification, right? When I can make someone into an other, a thing, including giving them silly names that reduce them to these two things. The whole idea with that is now they're an object, they're not a person. As soon as someone's an object and not a person, you can kill them, rape them, make fun of them, dissociate them, take away whatever it is. And this happens on both sides, of the spectrum. So, staying connected at a human level is the most challenging work we have right now, but also the most important work of expanding our I to include more and more people. That's right. It's the whole idea behind evolutionary men and evolutionary psychology is the I we hold expands more and more. To, not just me, not just my blood kin, not just my faith kin, not just my national kin, not just my planetary kin, not even my same species, and it just keeps going to infinity through development. But that shit doesn't happen by itself.
Yeah. Last question. I wish more men would jump in voluntarily, but in my experience, a lot of women tend to be the ones like gently encouraging their spouses or their brothers or their fathers into this direction. So what would you say to women who see the men in their lives having these problems, but don't know how to connect with them to get them? Like, what should they say? What should they encourage them? What should they point out to them, men?
Well, I think you're answering it. One with here is men fucking love podcasts. Just give them something to listen to. Be like, hey man, you should listen to this thing. I heard this guy's having better sex, whatever it is. That's like the lowest hanging fruit of, hey, just try listening to this thing. Some good information here. Bigger level, like, women do this and they just have to be willing to say, this isn't working for me. I will leave. Right? Like this just isn't working for me. I love you. I wanted to work with you, but I'm not going to do this. And whether that, there's all kinds of examples of that in relationships and culture working, but it's just that, hey, I want to grow with you. I want to grow with you. That's what it's not you have to grow. Hey, I want us to grow together. Here's the ways I'm growing. What would feel good to you? What are you excited about? Where do you feel stuck? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you to get help, right? This is the big thing we're having to rewire for men. You don't go to therapy just because you're messed up or rotten. Go to therapy because you want to be a better human being who can do more in life. Same thing with coaching, same thing with men's groups. And for a lot of guys, we do want to be successful. We want to win. And it's not bullshit. When you do this work, you will win more. You don't have control over everything, but you'll be able to fall asleep saying, cool. I played full out. So the wins I got are great. And the losses, I can tell I did everything I could. And that's an incredibly free place for men to be. The most painful place is, oh my God, I can feel my relationships dissolving and it's about to fall apart and I'm not taking action and I'm too afraid to do it. And it just tanks the whole system, right? Yeah. But it's the feeling of, it's totally different if I dive in with a partner and I really showed up. I got coaching, therapy, I did men's work. I really tried with her and 6 months later, she's like, this isn't working. It's very different. It's a very different feeling from, I didn't try at all.
Yeah. It's awesome. Jason, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Where can we find your content?
Yeah, best place to keep up with me is at evolutionary.men. There's links on there to, all the socials and my podcast and all that kind of stuff. So definitely swing on by if you like the vibe.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for your time today. I'm glad I hit the record button this time. And until next time, be well.